General items, item number 7, program development agreement with Chevron Energy Solutions. Diane.
Good evening. In July 2013, Chevron Energy Solutions approached city staff about developing an energy efficiency project in Yuba City. Chevron staff toured many of the city's facilities and determined that there are opportunities for energy conservation projects that will be beneficial to the city and result in a net savings. So tonight we have Annie Morse and Patrick Yost of Chevron here to give you a presentation. And then after the presentation, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor Gill, Vice Mayor Dukes, members of the City Council, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is Annie Morse. This is my colleague Patrick Yost. I work in a business capacity with Chevron. Patrick is a project manager and professional engineer with Chevron Energy Solutions. Our programs create energy and water savings, support local economic development, and provide educational opportunities for schools. In the past year, our local team has worked with Yuba County, Sutter County, the City of Livermore, and the West Sacramento School District, among others. In 2014, we hope to develop a project with Yuba City. We feel privileged to be here tonight. We've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Krager and Ms. Langley, and we have some ideas for ways we can support critical city goals, such as generating fiscal savings, supporting economic development, and improving public infrastructure. We've had the chance to walk Yuba City's facilities and, with the help of staff, create an initial energy analysis and project scope which indicate a financially viable project is possible. Tonight, we will share those findings and outline next steps for working together. Thanks. Okay, great. All right, in this presentation, we will provide you with an overview of the proposed partnership. We will describe the benefits to Yuba City in working with Chevron and the specific projects we have identified in the preliminary assessment phase. We will also share the financial analysis, and finally, we will explain our process and map out our next steps. The package we developed in our initial assessment will create $1.8 million in net savings. The performance of the projects is backstopped by Chevron, which greatly limits risk to the city. During the next phase of development, we will continue to explore opportunities to save energy in other ways and work collaboratively with staff to define the final scope. We are not a product manufacturer, and we are vendor neutral, which means that the city ultimately has much more control in choosing the technologies we implement and the way the projects are designed. We will leverage Chevron's banking relationships to secure multiple financing bids for the project from which the city can choose. We will help arrange the financing, but Chevron has nothing to gain on the type of financing Yuba City chooses to use. We do not finance projects, and that's not part of our business model. So we're there to try to find the most attractive financing to make this project work for Yuba City. We also encourage qualified local contractors to bid on the project work, and all final subcontractor decisions are made by the city. Thus, the city has the flexibility to choose local contractors even if they are not the lowest bidder that comes to the table for that scope of work. This is under Government Code 4217, which is designed to allow cities and public entities to contract for energy projects in the most efficient way possible. By hiring local, these projects have a beneficial impact on the local economy. All right, Patrick is going to talk about the work completed to date and our project scope.
So to start out the project, and I want to thank city staff for helping us out with the preliminary site walks, but how we start out this process is we get the PG&E bills that explains the gas and electric usage of the city, and this helps us prioritize where we're going to look for energy efficiency, renewable generation possibilities, or infrastructure projects that we can find throughout your sites. And we did site audits of City Hall, PD, some of the fire stations, water treatment plants. So we really did a comprehensive look at the city. And the whole idea is to look at these buildings, try to develop a comprehensive project that's optimized for the city to provide financial savings of the future and provide O&M or operation and maintenance relief to the facility staff. So.
Next slide.
So just to give you an idea of the scope opportunities that we've developed so far, you'll see as we go across here, the first item here, solar water, hot water heating, and that's at the pool. Right now there's a really great incentive out there that helps solar thermal heating for pools or for domestic hot water usage in buildings. This actually provides about 60% of the cost of the system, so it really makes it financially viable and would offset 60% of the gas usage at the pool. There's also indoor lighting and outdoor lighting throughout the city. Most of the technologies used in the buildings now is fluorescent T8 lighting. LED lighting is the newest, greatest thing, providing about 50% of this energy savings that a typical T8 fixture uses. So it's a really great opportunity here. And then we noticed at the police station and City Hall, there's some possibilities for doing some retro commissioning, looking at the air handlers, looking at some of the compressors, and seeing how we can tune those machines to operate a little bit more efficient, providing great savings to the city. Also at the PD, or police station, the EMS, that's the energy management system, that's what controls all the heating and cooling units. Basically there's two different systems operating there right now, and we wanted to make it one uniform system to allow facility staff easier operation of the system. And finally, there's some large pumps at the two water treatment plants, and they're not the most efficient pumps at this point, and it's a great payback to retrofit these fixtures or pumps to the newest. So, go ahead.
Do you want to speak a little bit about expanding?
Oh yeah, and so we have been working with the city for a while now, and we did look at some solar opportunities at the water plants, and at the moment they're not in the scope, but we can certainly look into that as we go into the future, and Annie's going to talk about how we're going to go forward here. So.
Great, thanks. Okay, so this next slide, it's a packed one. This is where we bring the inputs from the engineering and the inputs from the financing together, and we can make a decision about whether this is a viable project that we feel comfortable bringing to the city and offering to go into project development with you. And based on our analysis, we're very confident that that is the case. What I'm going to do is walk you through the assumptions, which are the top column on the right-hand side, and then I'll take you through the table column by column. Okay. So the project price is $1.19 million. We are assuming that the city will make no capital contribution to the project, so that the entire amount of the project would be financed. That may, change as we go through program development and discuss options with the city, but this is the assumption that we're working off of to be very conservative about how we assess this opportunity. The construction period interest, that's the amount of interest that accrues over the period of constructing the project, is in the next row. And when you add that to the total project price, the total amount to be financed is $1.2 million. The financing term is 18 years with a 4.25% interest rate. This is reflective of rates we've been seeing in the past few months on similar projects of ours with other cities in California. The escalation rate of electricity is 4.5%. This is a conservative number based on historical rates and projected rates, studies of those projected rates going forward. The escalation rate of natural gas is 3%, and the escalation rate of maintenance cost is 3%. All right, I'm going to walk you through the columns now. The first column shows the year. We've modeled the project over 20 years to reflect the life of the project assets. The second column shows electricity savings. The city spends close to $2 million on electricity annually. We'd like to make a bigger dent than what we're showing here, but there's opportunities to do that during program development. The third column shows natural gas savings. The fourth column shows lighting maintenance savings, which come from the LED lighting project. If you don't have to change light bulbs as frequently because of the long life of LEDs, you're going to save money on your lighting maintenance. The fifth column shows incentives that will be paid to the city from PG&E through programs for LED and solar hot water. And the sixth column is the total savings if you add up columns 2 through 5. So you'll notice the seventh column is the lease payment. Let's see, where do I want to go from here? So in the seventh column, you see that the first year, that lease payment is higher. The reason that we've modeled it this way is because we would assume that the city might want to use those incentives in the first year to pay back more of the lease in the first year to reduce your financing costs over time. So in the final column, the net savings are even from year to year. In regards to the financing, we really have no stake in how the city chooses to structure the payments, what financing partner you use. We are there to help facilitate that and to make that an easy process for the city. And because of our engineering expertise and the way that we work with financing partners, they feel comfortable financing these types of projects when Chevron is backing them. So at the bottom of the net savings column, you'll see the total savings over 20 years. So what you're looking at is $1.8 million in total savings to Yuba City made possible in this program. Okay. This next slide shows our process. So we've already gone through the opportunity assessment phase of the process. You'll see some of the activities that we did during that phase included utility analysis, like Patrick mentioned, site walks. We've also gone back and forth with city staff about their preferences on types of projects to include and looked at different scenarios of including some things and taking them out and putting them back in. So what we've agreed upon today is really a baby step that the city can take and that we can feel really confident will save money for Yuba City, but we hope that it's the beginning of a larger partnership between our organizations. The next phase of development is program development. Patrick's going to speak a little bit to the activities that happen in the next phase.
Yes, so the project development phase, this is where we're actually looking at finalizing the engineering for all the scopes that the city would like us to move forward with. And this can also include other projects that may not be identified right now. So once we have a final design for the project, we go out with our bid package to our pre-qualified subcontractors, and we can certainly include any local subcontractors that the staff may want to include in this. And we get bids for the project and then look at the overall financial benefit to the city, including the grants and incentives opportunities that we can identify, and come back to the city with one complete package on implementing each of the measures. So.
Okay. So this slide describes the structure of the program development agreement, which is the next step in the process. After completing program development, you're kind of starting at the end of the flow chart here at program development. If we find together that the resulting project does not produce average annual savings of $25,000, we will part ways and the city does not owe Chevron anything. If the project does reasonably project $25,000 in annual savings, our intention is to enter an implementation phase and build the project for Yuba City, which would be negotiated at that point in time between the city staff and Chevron. In that case, the cost of development would be rolled into the cost of the overall project and would need to be paid out of savings from the energy measures. If the city opts not to implement the project at that point, so that would be here, the city declines to implement, that would be the only case in which the city would owe $25,000 in development to us to recoup our costs of doing the engineering work in this phase. So this structure allows us to invest significant resources in developing the project with the confidence that the city is interested in building a financially viable project. It also greatly mitigates risk to the city because the city would only be charged if we bring you a financially viable project and other circumstances decide not to move forward. All right, I want to close with a recap of the program roadmap. Between June and October of this year, we conducted our opportunity assessment. We are now at a point where we'd like to go into program development, which we expect will take until June of this year. And then the implementation, we are projecting, being pretty conservative here with completing the project by March of 2015, maybe faster than that, but I would leave that to Patrick to comment on. So we look forward to partnering with Yuba City, and we're open to any questions you may have.
Questions from council members?
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Got several questions here. Are there any other projects in addition to the ones that you've identified here tonight that are possible to be done with the same project?
There are, and the way that we've set up the program development agreement, we will take cues from the city as to what else they would like us to look into at this point in the process. And they could, in fact, be included in the energy services contract at the end of program development.
So that answers my next question. If we could add them on later as we go through this process, we can add additional. If we do more of these, is the city at any more risk financially by adding on these additional projects in the future?
No, the program development cost is in the contract that was in the board packet. That's $25,000, and we would be willing to investigate the solar projects that we've looked at previously at no additional cost to the city.
All right, and then one last question. Who would get any rebates and or cap and trade credits that would be because of these projects?
The rebates would go directly to the city. And in terms of energy credits, whether it's carbon credits or renewable energy credits, that's typically negotiated during the project implementation contract, whether the city takes those or whether we take those. But that's up for a negotiation.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? I've got a couple of questions for yourself. You talked about the interest rate, 4.25 for 18 years. Is that fixed or is that variable?
I believe that's fixed, but I'd like to get back to you on that because I think our finance person knows more about that than I do.
Okay, and then for the lighting maintenance savings, you got $514,000, and I think one of the things you mentioned was changing some of the street lights to LED within the city, correct?
So actually, it was the fact of the interior lights and exterior lights, not the street lights.
Okay.
I believe some of or most of the street lights were already retrofitted to LEDs. So
Right.
of course that's a separate project, and we wouldn't be touching those. So it's now at the point where LED makes sense for interior lights. So we can actually go forward and do that, and you can realize the savings of not having to send facility staff out to constantly change lights.
Okay, and if we're looking at this 18 years, obviously you don't own it until it's all paid off. But I guess if we wanted to pay it off in year 10, is there realized savings then?
That's a good question, and I'm sure that it makes sense to me that that would be possible. But again, I'd want to check with my finance person to make sure and see whether we've done that with other cities.
And then is this a true lease or is this a buyout lease, I guess, as well?
It's a tax-exempt lease purchase is what we've modeled in this cash flow, but there are multiple financing mechanisms that cities have chosen to use when working on a project like this.
Okay.
So there's...
So in this model, the city retains ownership of the assets. So.
Okay, I guess that'll answer, when you have the answer to the question as far as paying it off, that'll answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. What's the recommendation of the council?
I'd recommend moving this item.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.